Georgia South, where she will be graduating in May with honors. Kayla is married to Earl Dupree, and they have a 3-month-old son, Ripton. Kayla and Earl are both educators with the Sly County school system. Pastor Womack has served as lead pastor at the Life Point Church in Americas for 23 years. He also serves as district overseer for the Church of God. Pastor Bud has been the chaplain for the Sumter County Sheriff's Department for the last 27 years and chaplain for the Georgia State Patrol for the last 6 years. He enjoys the outdoors, being involved in the local community, pastoring, of course, at Life Point Church, but most of all, he enjoys being papa to his new grandson, Ripton. Pastor Bud.
I sure am glad at least one of us are skinny to get back and forth here, and I'm not going to say which one of us are skinny. Thank you, Speaker Ralston and Representative Chokas, and each one of you that are here today. Thank you for the job you do. And especially I want to thank you for beginning each session every year with spiritual guidance and prayer. I always like to start when I'm speaking anywhere with something a little humorous. And after my years of law enforcement, I thought this might fit me a little bit. During an investigation, an FBI agent goes out to an old country farm, and he sees an old farmer sitting in the barn milking cows, and he walks up to him and says, "Sir, I'm with the FBI. I'm working a case, and I'll be searching your entire farm today." The farmer looked at him over the back of the cow, and he said, "Son, that's great, but do not go in the field with the green gate." And he said, "Sir, have you seen my badge?" And he pulls out this shiny gold badge. He says, "Do you see this badge? It gives me permission to go anywhere in the United States I want to go. That includes your farm." He said, "Sir, I appreciate your job and your effort. You're a young man, but you need to learn something. I'm telling you, don't go in that field with the green gate." He threw the badge back in the old farmer's face and said, "Young man, or old man, I will go anywhere I want to go because I have this badge that says I can." Old farmer said, "Okay," sat back down, started milking the cows. About 30 minutes goes by, and he heard the young FBI agent screaming to the top of his lungs, "Help, help, help, somebody help." Farmer smiled, stepped outside of the barn, and noticed his 2-ton prize bull chasing the young FBI agent across the field. He's screaming, "Help, help." The old farmer put both hands over his mouth and yelled, "The badge, the badge, show him the badge." At my age, if I'm running, you better run, because something's after me like a 2-ton prize bull. Philippians chapter 4, verse 6 through 9 says this, "Now, dear brothers and sisters, one final thing. Fix your thoughts on what is true and honorable and right and pure and lovely and admirable. Think about things that are excellent and worthy of praise. Keep putting into practice all you learned and received from me, everything you heard from me and saw me doing. Then the God of peace will be with you." That word fix means to direct oneself steadily or unwaveringly towards an action, thought, or goal. I found out in my 57 years of living that we focus more on the big things, the big fireworks, the big booms, the big loud, the big colors, than we do most of the little things that we have right in front of our lives. My daddy used to say there's some people that move so slow in life that you have to line them up with a fence post to see if they're moving. If you wasn't raised in the country, you might not know what that means, but I always did. But today we seem to move so quickly and so fast that not only do we miss the fence posts, oftentimes we miss the people as well. I want to share a story with you this morning that a young woman wrote in first person, so I'm going to read it to you. And it's also a beautiful lesson that she learned. The title of it's called Red Marbles. She writes, "I was at the corner grocery store buying some early potatoes. I noticed a small boy, delicate of bone and feature, ragged but clean, hungrily gazing at a basket of freshly picked peas. I paid for my potatoes, but was also drawn to the display of fresh peas. I'm a pushover for cream peas and new potatoes. pondering the peas, I couldn't help overhearing the conversation between Mr. Miller, the store owner, and the ragged-looking little boy next to me. Here's how the conversation went. "Hey, Barry, how are you today?" Mr. Miller said. "Hey, Mr. Miller, I'm fine, I reckon. Just looking at them peas. They sure do look good." "They are good, Barry. How's your mama doing?" "She's good, Mr. Miller, getting stronger all the time." "That's good, Barry. I'm proud. Anything I can help you with?" "No, sir. Just looking at them peas." "Would you like to take some home?" "No, sir, Mr. Miller. I ain't got nothing to pay for 'em with." "Well, Barry, what you got that you'll trade me?" He said, "I got my prize marble, Mr. Miller. It's a blue one, and I sort of like it, but it's a beauty, and I sure would trade it." Well, Mr. Miller takes a sack of peas and hands it to him, and he says, "Barry, do you have a marble that's a different color, like a red one? I like red marbles more than I do blue ones." He said, "I don't now, but I got one at home, Mr. Miller." He said, "I tell you what, Barry, you take these peas home with you, and when you come back, you bring that red marble, and we'll see about trading." Mrs. Miller, who had been standing nearby, noticed I was watching the conversation between Mr. Miller and the ragged-looking little boy. She came over and said, "There's two other little boys just like Barry around here. All three are in very poor circumstances. My husband just loves to bargain with them for all kinds of things he knows they need, especially when it's food. When they come back with their red marbles, he decided he doesn't like red after all, and he sends them home with more groceries for a green or an orange or a different colored marble." I left the store that day smiling inside and out, just so impressed with Mr. Miller. A short time later, I moved to Colorado, but I never forgot the story of this kind-hearted man and those three ragged little boys. Several years went by, and I had the opportunity to visit home with some old friends in that Idaho community. And while I was there, I learned that Mr. Miller had passed away. They were having his visitation that evening, and knowing my friends wanted to go, I agreed to go as well. When we got there, there was a long line to meet the family and to offer words of comfort. Ahead of us in line, I noticed three young men. One was in an Army uniform, and the other two were in nice suits and ties, and all of them looked very successful. They approached Mrs. Miller. Each one hugged her, kissed her on the cheek, spoke briefly, and moved to the casket. She watched them one by one. Each young man stopped briefly and placed his warm hand over the cold, pale hand of Mr. Miller, and then quietly left as they wiped tears from their eyes. Our turn came to greet Mrs. Miller, and I told her who I was and reminded her of what I had witnessed so long ago at their store and about her husband swapping and trading marbles for food. With her eyes glistening, she took my hand and led me to the casket. She then said, "Those three young men who just left are the three boys I told you about way back then. They just told me how much they appreciated the things my husband Jim did for them, and now that he couldn't change his mind about color or size, they came to pay their respect." She said, "You know, we've never had a great deal of wealth in this world, but right now, Jim would consider himself the richest man in Idaho." With loving gentleness, Mrs. Miller lifted the lifeless fingers of her husband, and resting underneath were three exquisitely shiny red marbles. Maya Angelou once said this: "Life is not measured by the number of breaths we take, but by the moments that take our breath." My friend, we may not be remembered for a lot of the words we say, but we will be remembered by the things we've done and why we did them. I think sometimes we need to look at the post and the people and just slow down and pay attention. Fix your thoughts on what is true, honorable, right, pure, lovely, admirable, excellent, and worthy of praise. Then the God of peace will be with you. And that's what I pray for every one of you every day, is that the God of peace will be with you. Can we pray? Heavenly Father, we thank you so much for the day that you blessed us with. Lord, thank you for allowing us to gather here. Thank you for the men and women that spend their time working so hard for the great state of Georgia. God, we thank you for their efforts, their minds, their abilities, their talents. God, work on our hearts, every one of us, from pastors right on down to legislators, right on down to the neighbors, to the little country store owners. God, let us remember that life is a lot like those little boys and those red marbles. It's important that we see those around us. God, give us a heart to love, to be gentle, to be pure, to be kind, to be thinking on things that are admirable. And Lord, I pray for your blessings to continue on this legislative body. Lord, we ask you to go with us throughout the remainder of this day. Lead, guide, and direct us. In the name of Jesus Christ we pray. Amen. Amen. Join me for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Doorkeepers will unlock the doors. Members may greet the chaplain in the South Anteroom. South Anteroom. The chair recognizes Chairman Hogan, the chair of the Committee on Information and Audits.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Committee on Information and Audits has read the journal of the previous legislative day and found it to be correct. And furthermore, Mr. Speaker, I don't believe you have to be better than everyone else. I believe you have to be better than you ever thought you could be. Ken Venturi.
Chairman Hogan, the chair of the Committee on Information and Audits, reports that the journal of the previous legislative day has been read and found to be correct. Is there any objection to the confirmation of the journal? The chair hears none, and the journal is confirmed. The clerk will read the resolution establishing the order of business for the day.
Mr. Burns, 159th moves followed be established as the order of business during the first part of the period. Unanimous consents. Introduction bills and resolutions. First reading and reference of House bills and resolutions. Second reading of bills and resolutions. Reports of standing committees. Third reading and passage of uncontested local bills and resolutions. First reading and reference of Senate bills and resolutions. Morning orders.
Is there any objection to the adoption of the resolution establishing the order of business for the day? The chair hears none, and the resolution is adopted. First reading of bills and resolutions. The clerk will read.
House Bill 1535 by Representative Taylor, 173rd, and Campbell, 171st. Bill be titled Act to amend an act to create the Grady County Lake Authority.
Intergovernmental
House
coordination.
Bill 1536 by Representative Green, 151st, Smith, 134th, Smith, 133rd, and Chokus, 138th. Bill be titled an act to amend an act to create the Lower Chattahoochee Regional Transportation.
Intergovernmental coordination.
House Bill 1537 by Representative Seaball, 34th, Setzler, 35th, Earhart of the 36th, Williams the 37th, Parsons the 44th, and others. Bill be entitled an act to amend an act creating the State Court of Cobb County.
Intergovernmental coordination.
House Bill 1538 by Representative Manulowitz the 42nd, Allen of the 40th, Jones the 53rd, Smith of the 41st, Thomas the 39th, and others. Bill be entitled an act to amend an act creating a new charter for the city of Smyrna.
Intergovernmental coordination.
House Bill 1539 by Representative Burchett of the 176th, Corbett of the 174th, Saints of the 180th. The bill be entitled an act to amend an act to create the Wave Cross Convention.
Intergovernmental coordination.
House Bill 1540 by Representative Allen of the 40th, Thomas the 39th, and Olowitz the 42nd, Seaball the 34th, Smith the 41st, and others. Bill be entitled an act to amend an act consolidating the offices of tax collector and tax receiver.
Intergovernmental
House
coordination.
Bill 1451 by Representative Allen of the 40th, Thomas the 39th, and Olowitz the 42nd, Seaball the 34th, Smith the 41st, and others. Bill be entitled an act to amend an act changing the compensation of the clerk of the Superior Court.
Intergovernmental coordination.
House Bill 1552 42 by Representative Mallow, the 163rd, Oliver of the 82nd, Jackson the 165th, Neal of the 74th, Hutchinson the 107th. Bill be entitled an act to amend Article 1 of Chapter 10 and Title 17 and Article 2 of Chapter 9 and Title 42.
Judiciary, non-civil.
House Bill 1543 by Representative Smith of the 18th, Gunner of the 8th, Leverett of the 33rd. A bill be entitled an act to amend Title 17 and Chapter 5 of Title 40, the official code of Georgia and Taylor relating to criminal
Judiciary, non-civil.
House Bill 1544 by Representative Evans, the 57th, Dickey of the 140th, Bentley of the 139th, Evans of the 83rd, Blackman of the 146th. Bill be entitled an act to amend subpart 2A, part 3 of Article 7, Chapter 3 of Title 20, the official code of Georgia and Taylor relating to needs-based financial aid.
Higher education.
House Bill 1545 by Representative Gamble, the 15th, Stevens, the 164th, Fry, the 118th, and Gunner of the 8th. Bill be entitled an act to amend Article 3 of Chapter 13 to Title 48 of the official code of Georgia and Taylor relating to excise tax on
Ways and means.
House Bill 1546 by Representative Evans, the 57th, Anulowitz, the 42nd, Fry, the 118th, Maynard, the 56th, Hitchens, the 161st. Bill be entitled an act to amend Code Section 3223 of the official code of Georgia annotated relating to development of transportation plans.
Transportation.
House Bill 1547 by Representative Hatchett of the 150th, England of the 116th, Burns of the 159th, Knight of the 130th, Houston of the 170th. Bill be entitled an act to amend Title 31 of the official code of Georgia annotated relating to health.
Special Committee on Access to Quality Health Care.
House Bill 1548 by Representative Leverett of the 33rd. A bill be titled an act to amend Article 3, Chapter 12 of Title 2 of the official code of Georgia annotated relating to soil amendments.
Natural Resources and Environment.
House Bill 1549 by Representative Bodie, the 62nd, McLaurin of the 51st, Kendrick of the 93rd, Alexander the 66th, Gilliard of the 162nd, and others. Bill be titled Act to amend Article 5 of Chapter 5 of Title 40 of the official code of Georgia annotated relating to identification cards.
Public Safety and Homeland Security.
House Bill 1550 by Representative Stevens, the 164th. Bill be titled an act to amend and act create a Board of Elections and Registration for Bryan County.
Intergovernmental Coordination.
House Resolution 936 by Representative Bazemore, the 63rd, Kennard of the 102nd, Beverly the 143rd, and Bruce the 61st. A resolution urging the Georgia Department of Transportation study safety.
Transportation.
House Resolution 937 by Representative Deloach of the 167th. A resolution honoring the life and memory of Deputy Sheldon Gordon Whitman and dedicating a road in his memory.
Transportation.
House Resolution 938 by Representative Hawkins of the 27th, Dubnik of the 29th, and Donahue of the 30th. A resolution recognizing Representative Carl Rogers and dedicating a bridge in his honor.
Transportation.
House Resolution 939 by Representative Gunner of the 8th, a resolution honoring the life of Reverend James and Jimmy Rogers Sr. and dedicating a bridge in his memory.
Transportation.
House Resolution 940 by Representative Estration of the 104th, a resolution honoring the life of Judge Emily P. Powell and dedicating intersection in her memory.
Transportation.
House Resolution 941 by Representative Gilliard of the 162nd, Stevens the 164th, Mallow of the 163rd, Hitchens the 161st, Jackson the 165th, and others. A resolution recognizing Mr. Doug Weathers and dedicating intersection.
Transportation.
House Resolution 942 by Representative Gilliard of the 162nd, Stevens the 164th, Mallow the 163rd, Hitchens the 161st, and Jackson the 165th. A resolution recognizing Mr. Lawrence Hutchins Jr. and dedicating a bridge.
Transportation.
House Resolution 943 by Representative Bennett of the 94th, Beverly the 143rd, Wilkerson of the 38th, Schofield the 60th, Hawkins the 27th, and others. A resolution creating the House Healthy Food Retail Study
Agriculture and Consumer Affairs.
Senate Bill 345 by Senator Mullis the 53rd, Hatcher the 50th, Anderson the 24th, Anna Duarte the 31st, Dixon the 45th, and others. Bill be titled an act to amend Chapter 1 of Title 50 of the official code of Georgia annotated relating to general provisions regarding state government.
Health and Human Services.
Senate Bills 379 by Senator Strickland of the 17th, Dugan of the 30th, Thompson of the 14th, Miller of the 49th, and Jones of the 25th, and others. Bill be titled an act to amend Chapter 4, Title 20 of the official code of Georgia annotated relating to vocational, technical, and adult education.
Higher Education.
Senate Bill 381 by Senator Robertson of the 29th, Albers of the 56th, Kennedy the 18th, Payne of the 54th, Hickman of the 4th, and others. Bill be entitled an act to amend Code Section 16.6.13 of the official code of Georgia annotated relating to the penalties.
Judiciary, non-civil.
Senate Bill 393 by Senator Dolezal of the 27th, Miller of the 49th, Strickland of the 17th, Dugan of the 30th, Burke of the 11th, and others. Bill being titled an act to amend Title 46 of the official code of Georgia and Territory relating to public utilities and public transportation.
Judiciary.
Senate Bill 441 by Senator Hatch of the 50th, Gooch of the 51st, Miller of the 49th, Goodman of the 8th, Butler of the 55th, and others. Bill being titled an act to amend Title 15 of the official code of Georgia and Territory relating to courts in general.
Judiciary non-civil.
That completes first readers.
Second reading of bills and resolutions. The clerk will read.
House Bill 1521 by Representative Montana of the 17th, Clark of the 147th, Corbett of the 174th, Nix of the 69th, Smith of the 133rd, and others. A bill relating to wildlife control permits. House Bill 1522 by Representative Ridley of the 6th, a bill relating to required information from operators of beauty pageants. House Bill 1523 by Representative Lott of the 122nd, Cooper of the 43rd, Jones of the 25th, Powell of the 32nd, and Corbett of the 174th, a bill relating to insurance. House Bill 1524 by Representative Howard of the 124th, Frazier of the 126th, Prince of the 127th, Nelson of the 125th, Newton of the 123rd, a bill relating to sales and use taxes. House Bill 1525 by Representative Ridley of the 6th, Powell of the 32nd, Washburn of the 141st, LaHood of the 175th, Smith of the 18th, and others. A bill relating to professions and businesses. House Bill 1526 by Representative Wilson of the 80th. A bill relating to public assistance. House Bill 1527 by Representative Mathiak of the 73rd, Bonner of the 72nd, Gunter of the 8th, Camp of the 131st, Jenkins of the 132nd, and others. A bill relating to constables, clerk, and other court personnel. House Bill 1528 by Representative Montana of the 17th, Barton of the 5th, Corbett of the 174th, Perkle of the 155th, Chokins of the 138th, and others. A bill relating to secondary metal recyclers. House Bill 1529 by Representative Williams of the 168th, Stevens of the 164th, Petrie of the 166th, Deloach of the 167th, Werkheiser of the 157th. A bill to amend an act to provide for a supplement to the compensation, expenses, and allowance of the District Attorney for the Atlantic Judicial Circuit. House Bill 1532 by Representative Ridley of the 6th, Gravely of the 67th, Rhodes of the 120th, Corbett of the 174th, a bill relating to hemp farming. House Bill 1533 by Representative Newton of the 123rd, Cooper of the 43rd, Fry of the 118th, Dempsey of the 13th, and Nolowitz of the 42nd. A bill relating to general provisions relative to professions and businesses. House Bill 1534 by Representative Holcomb of the 81st. A bill relating to investigating sexual assault. House Resolution 915 by Representative Moore of the 90th, Cantrell of the 22nd, Mitchell of the 88th, and Thomas of the 65th. Resolution proposing amendment to the Constitution so as to provide that the members of the General Assembly elected in 2024 and thereafter shall serve 4-year terms of office. House Resolution 916 by Representative Dukes of the 154th, Williams of the 168th, Thomas of the 65th, Wilkerson of the 38th, Jackson of the 128th, and others. A resolution creating the Joint Study Committee for the Expansion and National Competitiveness of Georgia Agriculture. House Resolution 917 by Representative Howard of the 124th, Alexander of the 66th, and Evans of the 83rd. Resolution creating the House Study Committee to assess too young to suspend. House Resolution 918 by Representative Estration of the 104th, a resolution honoring the life of Judge Ramon Alvarado and dedicating a bridge in his memory. House Resolution 919 by Representative Williams of the 145th, Gilliard of the 162nd, Hitchens of the 161st, Powell of the 32nd, Campbell of the 171st, and others. Resolution urging the Federal Railroad Administration to follow through with its efforts to regulate train length. House Resolution 931 by Representative Carson of the 46th, a resolution honoring the life of Mr. Edward Kip William Klein III and dedicating an intersection in his memory. Senate Bill 382 by Senator Robertson of the 29th, Albers of the 56th, Gooch of the 51st, Cowser of the 46th, Walker of the 3rd of the 20th, and others. A bill relating to child molestation, aggravated child molestation. Senate Bill 486 by Senator Harper of the 7th, Walker of the 3rd of the 20th, Anderson of the 24th, Sims of the 12th, Goodman of the 8th, and others. A bill relating to Agriculture Commodity Commission for propane. Senate Bill 493 by Senator Mollis of the 53rd and Gooch of the 51st, a bill relating to miscellaneous provisions regarding timeshare projects and programs. Senate Bill 529 by Senator Gooch of the 51st, Albers of the 56th, Burke of the 11th, Harbison of the 15th, Mollis of the 53rd, and others. A bill relating to expedited franchising of cable and video services. 3 second readers.
Reports of standing committees. The clerk will read.
Representative Robert Dickey, the 140th District Chairman of Committee on Agriculture and Consumer Affairs, submitted the following report. Mr. Speaker, Committee on Agriculture and Consumer Affairs is out of consideration following bills of the House. Instructed me to report same back to the House the following recommendations. House Bill 1152 do pass by committee substitute. House Bill 1384 do pass. House Bill 1443 do pass by committee substitute. Respectfully submitted, Representative Robert Dickey, the 140th District Chairman. Representative LaHood of the 175th District Chairman of the Committee on Code Revisions submitted the following report. Mr. Speaker, your Committee on Code Revisions had under consideration the following bills of the House. Instructed me to report same back to the House. Following recommendations. House Bill 428 do pass. Respectfully submitted, Representative LaHood of the 175th District Chairman. Representative Don Parsons, the 44th District Chairman of the Committee on Energy, Utilities, and Telecommunications, submitted the following report. Mr. Speaker, your Committee on Energy, Utilities, and Telecommunications has had under consideration the following bill of the House. It's instructed me to report same back to the House. The following recommendations. House Bill 1322 do pass by substitute. Respectfully submitted, Representative Don Parsons, the 44th District Chairman. Representative Petrie, the 166th District Chairman of the Committee on Human Relations and Aging, submitted the following report. Mr. Speaker, your Committee on Human Relations and Aging has had under consideration the following bills of the House and instructed me to report the same back to the House. Following recommendations. House Bill 1520 do pass by committee substitute. House Bill 1436 do pass by committee substitute. Respectfully submitted, Representative Petrie, the 166th District Chairman. Representative Jan Tankersley, the 160th District Chairman of the Committee on Intergovernmental Coordination Local, submitted the following report. Mr. Speaker, your Committee on Intergovernmental Coordination Local is out under consideration following bills of the Senate and instructed me to report same back to the House. Following recommendations. Senate Bill 559 do pass. Senate Bill 570 do pass. Respectfully submitted, Representative Jan Tankersley, the 160th District Chairman. Representative Administration of the 104th District Chairman of the Committee on Judiciary submitted the following report. Mr. Speaker, your Committee on Judiciary has had under consideration the following bills of the House. Instructed me to report the same back to the House. The following recommendations. House Bill 1321 do pass by substitute. House Bill 1388 do pass by substitute. Respectfully submitted, Representative Administration of the 104th District Chairman. Representative Mandy Ballinger, the 23rd District Chairman of the Committee on Juvenile Justice, submitted the following report. Mr. Speaker, your Committee on Juvenile Justice has had under its consideration the following bills of the House and instructed me to report the same back to the House. The following recommendations. House Bill 274 do pass by committee substitute. House Bill 1234 do pass. Respectfully submitted, Representative Mandy Ballinger, the 23rd District Chairman. Representative Jay Collins, the 68th District Chairman of the Committee on Public Safety and Homeland Security, submitted the following report. Mr. Speaker, your Committee on Public Safety and Homeland Security has had under consideration the following bills of the House. Instructed me to report the same back to the House with the following recommendations. House Bill 1448 do pass by committee substitute. House Bill 1004 do pass by committee substitute. Respectfully submitted, Representative Jay Collins of the 68th District Chairman. Representative Powell, the 32nd District Chairman of the Committee on Regulated Industries, submitted the following report. Mr. Speaker, your Committee on Regulated Industries has had under consideration the following bills of the House. Instructed me to report the same back to the House. The following recommendations. House Bill 972 do pass by substitute. House Bill 1424 do pass by substitute. House Bill 1441 do pass. Respectfully submitted, Representative Powell, the 32nd District Chairman. Representative Robert Dickey, the 140th District Chairman of the Committee on Agriculture and Consumer Affairs, submitted the following report. Mr. Speaker, your Committee on Agriculture and Consumer Affairs has had under consideration the following bills of the House and has instructed me to report the same back to the House. The following recommendations. House Bill 1376 do pass by committee substitute. Respectfully submitted, Representative Robert Dickey, the 140th District Chairman. That completes the reading of the reports of standing committees.
We are going on now to the local calendar. Going on to the local calendar. Third reading and passage of uncontested local bills. If there is no objection, we will vote on the local calendar as a whole with a recorded vote. Hearing none, it is so ordered. The clerk will read the local calendar.
Senate Bill 559 by Senator Burns, the 23rd, City of Thompson. And Senate Bill 570 by Senator Sims of the 12th, Sumter County.
Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered on the local calendar? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bills? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall these bills now pass? All those in favor of the passage of the bills on the local calendar will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine on the passage of the bills on the local calendar. The ayes are 148. The nays are 6. These bills, having received the requisite constitutional majority, are therefore passed. All right, we're going to go on now to morning orders. Chair is going to ask members to please give respect and attention to the members in the well. Keep in mind also that by order, by rule of the House, morning orders are limited to a total of 10 minutes. The chair is going to do a little something different, though, given the nature of the morning order. All morning orders will be subject to 1 minute each, with the exception of Dean Smyrie. Chair recognizes Dean Calvin Smyrie for a morning order.
Thank you, the one on the bottom, the button on the bottom. I've been up here too long. But I'm happy to come this morning. I'm with Representative Smith, who represents District 18, and tomorrow is Speaker Thomas B. Murphy's birthday, and we won't be in session. And every year, Speaker Ralston and a group of us have always said happy birthday to Speaker Thomas B. Murphy, and this young man now represents the 18th district, and and he'll be, I guess, doing it from this forth now and forevermore. But I'm just happy. I served with Speaker Murphy, and he served as Speaker for 29 years, and is the third longest serving Speaker in the United States history. 29 years, and it's been a tradition in this House, led by Speaker Ralston, that we would acknowledge the birthday of Thomas B. Murphy, who was a dear friend of mine, and a person who served this state well and did a lot for this state, and we are indebted to his service. In fact, he he did so much for Atlanta, Georgia, and for the state of Georgia. And if you go back and look at the World Congress Center and the Dome and other areas of that's beneficial to Atlanta Martyr, you'll see the footprint of Thomas B. Murphy. So it's just a joy to come today. I talk to his son, Mike Murphy, Judge, all the time we talk, and I'm always looking forward to seeing the grandchildren up here on their pages, but they're, of course, because of COVID, we can't do that now. But Mr. Speaker, thank you for giving us this opportunity to say happy birthday, and on behalf of the House and Speaker Ralston and Representative Tyler Paul Smith, we want to say happy birthday to Speaker Thomas B. Murphy. Thank you all very much.
Thank you. Thank you all very much. There is no doubt that Speaker Murphy was a real giant in Georgia history, and we have much to be grateful to him for. I think the thing I'm most grateful is he fought for 34 years for the independence of this House. And so our independence today owes in large measure to his determination that this House would be independent and equal to all other branches of government. Now, 1 minute each. Chair recognizes Representative Al Williams for a morning order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise this morning to honor the retirement of retired Admiral Annie Andrews, who recently retired as the Deputy Administrator for the Federal Aviation Administration, and she has moved home to Liberty County. And part of the honor was she was given a final approach fix at the Savannah Hilton International Airport. It's named after Annie and will be used by all pilots as they make their final approach in preparation for landing. Listen out for runway 28 for Annie. Rear Admiral Annie Andrews, who when she retired, she was one of only 3 African-American women to attain the rank of Admiral in the Navy, and a graduate of Savannah State University, where you can go anywhere from Savannah State. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Chair recognizes Vice Chairman Gravely for a morning order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have the distinct honor this morning to recognize a group of individuals who have come from our community and for the last 10, 12 years have had a tremendous impact on our public safety community back home where we live. The Paulding Public Safety Appreciation Incorporated board members are here. As a matter of fact, they are watching from our office upstairs, and we want to thank them for everything that they've done. This is an organization that provides for the men and women of public safety who both live and or work in our community. Since their inception in 2009, they've been able to raise over $300,000 with various runs, a glow run, 5K in our community, breakfast events, and really just helping out the men and women. So we want to commend them. Joseph Gullett and I have had the great pleasure of serving as president of that board, and it's been a really great honor. So we as the Paulding County delegation stand up here to commend them today. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield the will.
Chair recognizes Representative Bonner for a morning order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This morning I'd like to just say happy birthday to the city of Peachtree City. Back in March of 1959, House Bill 242 was introduced by Representative Grady Huddleston, carried in the Senate by Senator Harry Redwine, signed into law March 9th, 1959, and that day the city of Peachtree City was chartered. Joel Cowan served as our first mayor. The city was the first planned community in the United States featuring a village concept where every village in the city had its own stores, schools, and recreational areas. Today, Peachtree City is a thriving community of over 35,000 residents, over 100 miles of golf cart paths, over 11,000 golf carts registered in the city. It is consistently ranked among the best places to live in the United States, and it's been my honor for the last 5 years to represent that great city, Peachtree City. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield the well.
Chair recognizes Representative Mallow for a morning order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Colleagues, today is Scouts Day at the Capitol. I'm sure you have seen all of the scouts from the Boy Scouts of America here for Scouts Day at the Capitol. The Atlanta Area Council has provided popcorn, and each of you have it on your desk. And we're so excited to have scouts from all over the state here with us. So if you haven't met your constituents, your scouts, I encourage you to take a picture. And with that, I will yield the remainder of my time to Representative Lisa Hagan, who has a special guest today.
My special guest is my son Henry. He's in the back this morning, and he is no longer a scout as he turned 18 last month, but he did make Eagle about 3 weeks before that deadline. So we're very proud of him and thank him for being here today.
Good job. Good job.
Chair recognizes Representative Kelly for a morning order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Monday night, the Georgia State men's basketball team beat Louisiana, securing them a place in the NCAA March Madness tournament and securing a Sun Belt Conference championship for them. It was their 10th win and the 6th time that they are advancing now to the NCAA tournament. So just want to congratulate them and say, go Panthers. Thank you.
Chair recognizes Chairman Cooper for a morning order.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Today is March of Dimes Day, and on your desk you will find a gift from them. It is a cookie, and attached is their priorities for this year. It was nice of them to thank us for all that we have done for mothers and babies, and I want to thank all of you that have helped me on so many bills in that issue. And it was very nice, like I say, to have them recognize that. But of course, there's still more that that we can do, and they are the one organization or one of the main organizations that works on that constantly. So, March of Dimes Day, March of Dimes Day, and if you see one of the advocates, please tell them thank you for all they do for Georgia's moms and children. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Chair recognizes Representative Cantrell for a morning order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Colleagues, I've been down here a couple times recently to call out some behavior that we didn't agree with, but I wanted to come down and give credit where credit is due. So today I want to raise a bottle, first of all, to President Biden for cutting off all oil imports from Russia. And secondly, to our friends down the street, that certain soft drink company, for also cutting off all business with Russia. We're grateful for that. And we want to encourage all companies to do the same thing. Companies like MasterCard, Visa, Disney, Harley-Davidson have done so. Let's continue to encourage private companies to make the right decisions and to support our government. Thank you.
Chair recognizes Representative Lott for a morning order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. There's a huge misunderstanding in the media with some of our constituents and unfortunately among some in our chamber about Medicaid expansion in Georgia. To be clear, Georgia did expand Medicaid when we passed the Patients First Act and Georgia Pathways in a way that would benefit nearly 1 million Georgians. But the Biden administration has halted our efforts to ensure that those Georgians that fell within the gap created by the Affordable Care Act could qualify for Medicaid. The implementation of our 1332 waiver has since created a 12% reduction in insurance costs to those Georgians on the individual marketplace, as well as increased insurance carrier participation in Georgia. Unfortunately, the 1115 waiver that had been approved by the Trump administration was stopped in its tracks by the Biden administration. Georgia was set for the 1332 waiver to go into effect last summer and would have offered Medicaid as an option for all those that fell within the gap created by the Affordable Care Act. The implementation of the 1332 waiver was for those able-bodied Georgians under 100% of the federal poverty line and would have had the ability to use our Medicaid program, while ensuring that all those uninsured between 100 and 150% of the federal poverty line could continue using private health insurance at no cost to them. Thank you. It is our time now to reach out to our U.S. senators and seek help. Thank you.
Chair recognizes Representative Beth Moore for a morning order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It is my pleasure to come down here on an annual basis to recognize tomorrow, March 10th, as Public Library Day at the State Capitol. So I hope you will join me in recognizing the 407 public libraries that serve every county in the state of Georgia. Libraries and librarians do amazing things for citizens every year, but they were especially impactful this past year. In 2021, there were more than 7.9 million in-person visits to more than 21 million and more than 21 million online visits to Georgia's public libraries. Last year, there were 28.9 million books, media, and materials checked out of public libraries, with an average of 79,000 materials checked out every day. And in 2021, 1.4 million children attended public reading times, both in libraries and online across the state. So for folks who will be here tomorrow on Library Day, Thursday, March 10th, Julie Walker, our state librarian, has arranged for a varsity food truck to be available between the Capitol and CLOB from 11:45 to 12:45 for anybody that would like to grab a food box. So that will be tomorrow for anybody who's here on committee day. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Representative Hutchinson, you've got 25 seconds. Is that enough? Chair recognizes Representative Hutchinson for a brief morning order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm going to go super fast. This is 11-year-old Helen. She is a sweet, friendly, and engaging girl who enjoys going for walks, riding her bike, listening to pop and hip-hop. She enjoys playing volleyball, cheerleading, and participating in activities at school. And I just want to say in less than 25 seconds, it's Women's History Month, and just imagine what this girl can do with the right parents. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield the well.
Okay, we're going now to the rules calendar. Going to the rules calendar. House will come to order. House will come to order. We've got a lot of measures on the rules calendar today, so I'm going to ask you to please stay close by your seat and let's keep the noise down to a manageable hum. Clerk will read the caption to House Bill 1455.
House Bill 1455 by Representative Hitchens, the 161st, and others to be entitled an act to amend Chapter 2 of Title 52 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to Georgia Ports Authority so as to provide for powers of authority. This bill having referred to the Committee on Public Safety and Homeland Security. That committee recommends that this bill do pass.
Chair recognizes Chairman Hitchens to present the bill.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I rise today on behalf of House Bill 1455. I don't think anybody in here would disagree with me when he said the growth at the Georgia Ports Authority has been phenomenal over about the last 20 years. I've been fortunate that I represent a good part of it, the container area, which has moved from about 15th in the country in number of in materials moved through the port to number 2. And what has happened as a direct result of that is the geographical boundaries of the port can no longer stand any expansion. So what's happened is the Port Authority has bought off-site properties where they store containers and other materials that are in transit. And what this bill does is gives the authority to the Georgia Ports Authority Police, who are all post-certified, authority to take action as they're in transit from the port facility proper to one of these sites. I have a letter here from every police agency and every city manager that falls within it, the city of Savannah, Port Wentworth, Garden City, Brunswick, and the Chatham County Police. They are all in favor of this. And if there are no questions, I would appreciate your approval.
You have no questions.
Thank you.
Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All those in favor of the passage of the bill will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine on the passage of House Bill 1455. The ayes are 159. The nays are 1. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Clerk will read the caption to House Bill 1406.
House Bill 1406 by Representative Martin of the 49th, being entitled an act to amend Code Section 3666-4 of the official code of Georgia, annotated, relating hearings on proposed zoning decisions, notice of hearing, and non-governmental initiated actions. This bill having referred to the Committee on Governmental Affairs, that committee recommends that this bill do pass by committee substitute.
Chair recognizes Chairman Martin to present the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, why we're here for this bill today. The why in this bill is a government near and dear to us here in Atlanta, while maybe well-meaning a year or so ago, put forth a process to just change the way that single-family residential property is used, and did so without notifying a lot of people. Now, what happened is that was withdrawn, but it caused, if you've been around here this session, a little bit of upset across the Atlanta community. So what I have before us here today is a compromise piece of legislation that I want to thank GMA and the City of Atlanta for working on, that provides transparency for citizens, but does not take a municipality's ability to do the zoning away from them. It just requires notice. Specifically, if a widespread change in single-family use is proposed by a government, by the city, they're required to do extra notifications, which you'll see on lines 17 through 37 of this bill. And again, I want to thank Atlanta for coming forward and working with us, being good neighbors to the people that live in the city, so that we can give our community members and the homeowners, because to each and every family that owns a home, the place they live is sacred and important to them. And this provides transparency so that the city and the homeowners can be good neighbors. I want to make the last point I'd like to make, Mr. Speaker, is this does not at all affect or impact an owner-initiated zoning. The last thing is, this does not prohibit the city from taking that action. It instead makes sure that everybody is noticed for that action. And with that, if there are questions, it is a bit of a technical issue. If there are technical questions, I take it, Mr. Speaker. Otherwise, I would ask the House favorable consideration to this for more transparency, and so that the people that live within our municipal governments are well informed.
You have a question if you care to yield.
Yes, sir.
Chair recognizes the minority leader, Leader Beverly, to your left for a question.
Does the gentleman yield?
I do.
On lines 21 to 23, the zoning, it requires the zoning decision to be adopted at 2 regular meetings of the local government making a decision in a period of not less than 21 days apart. As I read through this bill, why is that requirement there? And is it just on multifamily trying to become built in a residential district? But why are those lines there? And it seems like it's a little bit more onerous than it needs to be.
I'm sorry, more onerous than?
Why are those lines added? I guess.
Okay, sure. Yeah, the lines, the gentleman asked, why is this more onerous? It's more onerous because what we're trying to do is provide notice and lengthy meetings when a city tries to change the land use of a residential lot. We're not talking about a rezoning. We're not talking about somebody coming in and saying, I want to take vacant land and make it residential, or I want to take this residential property and make it multifamily. What we're talking about here is what is referred to in Atlanta as a text amendment. I'd never heard that before, where they wish to take blanket across the board for every single family piece of property in the city of Atlanta, and they want to say now you can change that to multifamily. We think that's a fairly large change and deserves a little bit of extra notification, and Atlanta agreed with that.
Okay, so further question,
Yes,
Gentleman
sir.
Yield. Lines 38 to 42, and I just want to get some clarity around this. It says the notice must feature a prominent statement that proposed zoning decisions relates to or will authorize multifamily uses. I'll continue. Or that the proposed zoning decision gives blanket permission to property owners to deviate from the zoning requirements requiring single-family residential zoning. Could you explain that?
Yeah, well, I mean, I can explain. That's what the city is trying to do at a mass level. In this case, over 50,000 property owners would be affected. So what we're asking them to do is put on the notice what they're trying to do. It's just that simple. And again, I appreciate the fact that Atlanta realized, and if you go back, that suggestion for that zoning was pulled back because of the notice, but it also caused a lot of angst among residential neighborhoods and communities, and this will give the opportunity for everybody to have transparency and get along. I think it'll go a long way to getting along together. I thank the gentleman for the question. If there are other technical questions, Mr. Speaker, I'd take them.
You have one more if you care to yield.
Yes, sir. I want to make sure everybody understands we're being transparent.
Chair recognizes Representative Carter up in the gallery for a question.
Thank you, Speaker Ralston. Does the gentleman yield?
Yes, ma'am.
My question relates to how the residents will be notified. Will this increase where the zoning notifications, like the signs are being set up? Because in my district, we found that sometimes the signs are in areas where the residents don't see it. So in giving notification, I just want to be clear that the signs will be where people can see them, and the residents who are affected will definitely still get the information in the mail.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. I thank the lady for the question, and the answer is this. All of the notice requirements that are in current zoning code still have to be met. Okay. In addition to, in lines 31 through 37 of the bill, additional notices have to be placed, and that means prior, if a government was going to rezone property, they didn't have to put signs out on every property. This requires, if their zoning falls under this section, and if there's less than 500 properties affected, they would have to put a sign in every yard. If there's more than 500, the compromise that the City of Atlanta asked for is that they would put one every 500 feet if it was a larger zoning than 500 parcels. But that is in addition to the notice that's currently required for any so-called text amendment. So this is more notification for the ladies.
And does the gentleman further yield?
Yes, ma'am.
So I understand that this process is in place for rezoning, but will this also affect when there are special land uses? The land may currently be zoned, but it may need an additional land use permit, and there is permits that have to go out so that people can see what's going on. Will this also address special land use purposes?
This only addresses the reclassification and uses that's changing a current zoning that is zoned single family, and the changes would make it multifamily. That's the only place this language falls into. The other zoning code is not impacted. If the lady thinks there's some needs that we need to do there, I'd be happy to work with you to make sure that we get that done in the future, but that's not impacted here. Nothing's taken away. No notice is watered down or taken away, but this does not specifically impact zoning decisions that are initiated by an owner or zoning decisions not covered in lines 14 through 20.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, I'll, in the interest of time, I'll yield the well and ask the House's favorable consideration.
We have another speaker on the bill. Chair recognizes Representative McLaurin to speak to the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in opposition to the bill. Shocker. But let's keep it a little lighter today. I don't want to talk about prisons with you today. Let's talk about trees. Trees. Let's talk about Sandy Springs quickly. A bunch of people in Sandy Springs said, I moved to Sandy Springs 30 years ago, and I moved there because it was a forest, right? It was a nice wooded area where I could have my single family home, live in peace. And there are a lot of people in Sandy Springs still thankfully living that experience. And it's my job here at the Capitol to represent those people. So when GDOT is building express lanes, having baked this idea years ago and already got the federal money on the way, and public hearings are a little late, and the people in these wooded areas of Sandy Springs want to know why flyover express lanes are going to go right over their property, I'm the one who has to answer for that, in addition to GDOT staff. So I represent those folks, but I also represent a lot of other people too. And just from a pure, raw electoral perspective, the reason I'm standing here and not a Republican is because of a lot of people in multifamily homes in Sandy Springs. Thousands of people who live on the north end of Sandy Springs whose doors I knocked on, and vote builder data on who was in those apartments wasn't very good. So if there's a light on in the window, I knocked because maybe I'd get somebody home, right? People who have a lot lower engagement on average with the political system, the powers that be, than these people in single family homes who, again, I'm proud to represent. But let's talk about trees, because trees are an amenity. I moved to Sandy Springs because it was a forest, but trees are also a wall. Trees are a barrier. If you live in a single family home in Sandy Springs, you might not, unless you take some of these extra off-road turns, you might not know how many of your neighbors live in sprawling multifamily complexes just behind the trees along Roswell Road. But there's thousands of us. I say us because I live in an apartment in a multifamily community in Sandy Springs. And the affordable housing that we have in Sandy Springs, we are barely holding on to. It's called naturally occurring affordable housing, NOAA. It's in the literature if you read about affordable housing. We're not building a lot of new affordable housing in Sandy Springs right now. We are clutching on to the affordable housing that we have. And when you look at historical pressures, we've got a few trends happening. Quick data point that I shared with a colleague the other night that I think is worth thinking about. I remember hearing from somebody who studies housing and transit in my area that in the city of Sandy Springs, 100,000 people go into the city every day for work. 100,000 people leave the city every day for work, commute out. Only 7,000 people live and work in Sandy Springs. It is truly a gateway community that requires creativity, requires proactive thinking on density, housing, transit for the next decades to come. The decisions we make now will determine whether, decades from now, we have any communities remotely resembling the ones that the folks moved to 30 years ago, or that are livable for people of all different classes like the community is now. Now that's a lot of preface, and so I'll get right to the point. This type of bill creates an incremental procedural barrier to doing more multifamily housing, more potentially affordable housing, to allow for a little more density in metro Atlanta communities, in response to the rush of people moving in to the state of Georgia, to the metro Atlanta area, driving up housing prices, making our transit issues worse, and the list goes on. Now, we got a brief respite during COVID from some of the worst of our transit issues, right? You guys remember driving, illegally driving with the windows down, during the lockdown, with only you and the road, right? We don't need those COVID restrictions, just me and the road. But when you did that, you recognize COVID brought a little bit of relief temporarily from those transit issues, but it's coming back. So here's ultimately the question I have for you. We have a decision to make, not just in Sandy Springs, but all over the metro about how to handle difficult questions of housing, transit, etc., to deal with density. This type of bill is fairly innocuous on its face, right? Transparency, a little bit of procedural barrier if we move from a single-family zoning to a multifamily zoning. But the question I want to ask you is, where is our vision? Where is our legislative agenda for taking the big bite, for tackling the big issues when it comes to density, finding the political will to do that, whether it's community land trusts for affordable housing within city limits, to make sure that people are not priced out of their homes by property taxes, right? I'm going to invoke the legacy of a great man, Mr. Jeff Parker, who would stand on a stage in front of all of us and with no irony or kidding in his voice would point at a PowerPoint and say, what we need in this state is $100 billion for transit. And people would laugh because they're familiar with the way that political will works around these issues. But he's not wrong. He was not wrong. If we don't think on that level, $100 billion for transit, aggressively thinking about how to keep existing communities in their homes through different legal techniques and state funding for affordable housing to make sure that works. Not just the tax break here and there to developers, not just random isolated zoning decisions at the municipal level. We have to want to live with our neighbors. Not just the ones we have now, but the ones who are moving here. And so again, innocuous on its face, this bill, but the question I have for everybody that I hope stays with all of us is when we legislate not just for 2030, but for 2050, and we think about what our communities are going to look like, are we only going to pass legislation that incrementally moves us towards protecting a single-family home status quo? Or are we going to think creatively, courageously, about how to build communities with more density that are cosmopolitan, that meet modern needs for jobs, social life, family connectivity? Are we going to take that leap together as opposed to zooming in and only thinking about these decisions in a small way, incrementally, year after year? I invite you to join with me and everybody else who's trying to do this, and let's think about how to do transit, how to do housing, for the next few decades to build the kind of metro Atlanta that not only do we deserve, but is inevitable. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield the well.
Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to adopting the committee substitute? The chair hears none. The committee substitute is adopted. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All those in favor of the passage of the bill will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machines on the passage of House Bill 1406. The ayes are 110, the nays are 51. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Clerk will read the caption to House Bill 1381.
House Bill 1381 by Representative Stevens, the 164th, and others to be entitled an act to amend Chapter 80, Title 36, the official code of Georgia Antietam relating to general provisions applicable to county, municipal corporations, and other governmental entities so as to require Water and Sewer Authority board members to complete yearly continuing training courses. This bill having referred to the Committee on Governmental Affairs, that committee recommends that this bill do pass.
Chair recognizes Chairman Stevens to present the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen of the House, House Bill 1381 does one very simple thing. Out of the Rural Development Council that we've met several times over the past, we've come to realize that the development authorities, specifically in this bill, the water and sewer authorities, don't require education at all whenever they go to apply for some of these grants and loans. So all this bill does, very simply, is require the Water and Sewer Authority board members to complete a yearly 4-hour training course, either online or in person, before they can receive funds from the Georgia Environmental Finance Authority. Mr. Speaker, that's very simple. What it does, it gives the board members until July of next year, 2023, to complete this course. And again, then those funds from GFA would be freed up. Mr. Speaker, I'll take any questions if there are any.
You have no questions. Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All those in favor of the passage of the bill will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machines on the passage of House Bill 1381. The ayes are 155, the nays are 0. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Clerk will read the caption to House Bill 1372.
House Bill 1372 by Representative Smith and 133rd and others to be entitled an act to amend Title 25 of the official code of Georgia Antietam relating to fire protection and safety so as to revise the provisions in short title of Chapter 9, the Georgia Utility Facility Protection Act. This bill having referred to the Committee on Energy, Utilities, and Telecommunications. That committee recommends that this bill do pass.
Chair recognizes Representative Vance Smith to present the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen of the House, last year we passed House Bill 449, which was a utility bill, and it passed out 160 to 0, went to the Senate. They wanted to add some language. We came back during the summer, and thanks to Chairman Parsons on the EUT committee, appreciate all his help. He appointed a subcommittee off of his committee. We had several meetings. Representative Meeks was the chair, and appreciated all the people that served on that committee. We looked at the issues that they wanted to add, and with this bill is all inclusive. We put everything in this one bill. There are 18 organizations, whether it's groups, associations, departments, everybody working together, have been for about 2 years now, discussing the update to the code on call before you dig. The number one issue in the whole bill, and to all of these groups and to the contractors that do the installation, is safety. safety to our citizens, safety to them, their operators that are working on this machinery. So we've gotten together. The bill is updated. It's giving a larger window for people to call in to the locate company. They can call 8 days ahead of time. It allows the location company to schedule better than just calling 2 days ahead of time. So it's actually a safety bill and a more efficient bill in the way we have it structured now. You'll notice it has the first 9 pages are all definitions. It's about a 33-page bill. It goes into talking about blasting and how all that is handled. But I appreciate all these groups working together, and I know it's been a challenge for them, but again, thanks to Chairman Parsons, and if anybody has any questions, Mr. Speaker, I'll yield the will, but I certainly appreciate your favorable consideration.
You have no questions.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All those in favor of the passage of the bill will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine. On the passage of House Bill 1372, the ayes are 160, the nays are 0. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Clerk will read the caption to House Bill 1371.
House Bill 1371 by Representative Jaspers, the 11th, and others to be entitled an act to amend Chapter 1 of Title 31 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated regarding general provisions regarding health, so as to provide for the creation of the Rural Health Advancement Commission. This bill then referred to the Special Committee on Quality Health Care, and that committee recommends that this bill do pass by committee substitute.
Recognizes Chairman Jaspers to present the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. During the past 5 years, or 6 years really, many of us have passed legislation to find ways to improve health care outcomes in our state. We've also passed many bills to create avenues for strengthening the healthcare workforce. And in very many ways, we have been successful. What we heard clearly this year in the Rural Development Council was the need to take a real hard look at addressing short and long-term health care solutions in rural Georgia. And what we're seeing before you today is the creation of a commission to do just that. When we sit and try to figure these things out, we saw through the people that come to see us, this Rural Health Advancement Commission was the best way forward, because they'll have time to really look at it and meet bi-monthly over the period of 2 years, and then afterwards to look at solutions for this. The commission has 13 members. I know many of you look at that list and you're saying, what about this group that I'm interested in? Well, I've been deluged by those people, but we felt we had to put a limit on it. And in stopping at 13, we know if you look at that list, these 13 people will seek out the brightest and best, concerned to find out what the needs are and the best play, and create the best plan for Georgia moving forward. This will help us direct our dollars and efforts in the most needed areas and identify where gaps in training and healthcare and workforce. It's a high bar we're asking these members to do, and those chosen know what's at stake to help keep us moving forward and improving healthcare outcomes in Georgia. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'll be glad to answer any questions if there are any.
You have a question if you care to yield.
Yes, sir.
Chair recognizes Representative Dreyer to your left for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Does the gentleman yield?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, thank you for bringing this bill. We all want to do something to address a crisis in rural health care and health care access in Georgia. I just want to ask you, this commission that we're setting up, there was a way to get approximately $1 billion extra dollars in healthcare funds in Georgia on an annual basis, would that be helpful for these commissioners to make a dent in the lack of healthcare access in some communities in rural Georgia?
I think the best thing will be to pass this bill and let these 13 members decide what's best. And also, I think Floor Leader Lott's explanation of additional dollars for Georgia was very good this morning.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield the well and ask for your favorable consideration.
Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered on House Bill 1371? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to adopting the committee substitute? The chair hears none. The committee substitute is adopted. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All those in favor of the passage of the bill will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. What purpose does Representative Mallow rise?
Parliamentary inquiry.
State your inquiry.
Mr. Speaker, is it not true that if we fully expanded Medicaid in the state, that would address some of the short-term and long-term issues facing rural Georgia in health care?
Well, I think there's an honest debate on that, Representative. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machines on the passage of House Bill 1371. The ayes are 156, the nays are 4. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Clerk will read the caption to House Bill 1396.
House Bill 1396 by Representative Yerter of the 152nd and others to be entitled an act to amend Chapter 32 and Title 36 of the Official Code of Georgia and Tennesseee relating to municipal courts, so as to create the Georgia Municipal Court Clerks Council. This bill having been referred to the Committee on Judiciary, that committee recommends this bill do pass.
Chair recognizes Representative Yerter to present the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen of the House, I bring you House Bill 1396. This bill would simply just recognize the Municipal Courts Clerk Council as a statutory, give them statutory recognition in the state, or make them a state entity. This will help them with standardizing municipal courts in the state of Georgia, bring further professionalism to the courts and their administration of the courts, best practices, if you will. It will also help them aid in seeking grants for the creation of a municipal court clerks certification program. This will basically be an entity that represents the needs of the municipal court clerks in the state. They also plan on developing mentorship programs and implementing a number of training programs. This will again allow them to apply for grants, and certainly serving as a mayor, I know the importance of municipal courts in a community, and I think they're probably the largest class of courts. I think they're over 370 in the state, from very small communities to the city of Atlanta. And I've actually had judges to call me and express support for this bill, and they know the importance of what it can mean to efficiently and professionally run the courts, the municipal courts in the state of Georgia. And I just ask for your favorable consideration on this bill, and I'll be glad to entertain any questions.
You do not have any questions.
Thank you, sir. I yield the well.
Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All those in favor of the passage of the bill will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machines. On the passage of House Bill 1396, the ayes are 162, the nays are 2. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Clerk will read the caption to House Bill 1437. It's on the supplemental calendar.
House Bill 1437 by Representative Blackman of the 146th and others to be entitled an act to amend Chapter 7 and Title 4080 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to income taxes so as to revise the rates of taxation on income. This bill having referred to the Committee on Ways and Means, that committee recommends that this bill do pass by committee substitute.
The chair recognizes the chair of the House Ways and Means Committee, Chairman Blackman, to present the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I bring before you House Bill 1437, also been referred to as the Tax Reduction and Reform Act of 2022. Just a little background: early last year, considering the year-to-year revenue increases along with some of the modernization of various parts of our tax code, Speaker Ralston tasked us with looking at responsible tax cut reforms for the upcoming session. So after many months of studying and modeling and looking at various iterations and discussing with proposals with CPAs, high-level economists, and a host of other stakeholders, looking at proposals all across the political spectrum, we settled in on an option that is simple and fair and allows Georgians to keep a larger portion of their hard-earned dollars. The proposal that you have before you wraps many of our existing exemptions up into a much larger $12,000 and $24,000 plus a $3,000 dependent standard exemption, while preserving the option to itemize at the federal level. We also lower and simplify the rate to a flat 5.25, and this will keep more money in our citizens' pockets, especially for those that need it the most. A family of 4, for instance, will not pay 1 penny, not 1 penny, of state income tax on their first $30,000 of income. That same family of 4 at $50,000 of income will see an over $400 reduction in taxes. My wife, before we got married, as a single mother, would have saved nearly $300 annually under this proposal. And overall, it translates to an estimated $1 billion that we return to the taxpayers of Georgia. Additionally, and with savings across the board, we believe this tax cut reform will make us more competitive for wage earners at every income level, and thereby making Georgia an even better place to live, work, and raise a family. So to summarize, this plan lowers the rate, it significantly raises the standard exemption. It's simple, it's fair, and allows Georgians to keep more of their money. And I think most of y'all know I've got a 2-year-old at home, so if you'll indulge me, I have a good friend who suggested that I tell a story from time to time when I get up here. And he loves the movie The Grinch. I don't know if any of y'all seen the newest version of that from 2018, but he will recite at 2 years old the first part of that, and he will say it, and the way it goes is it says, "Past the place where you come from, far beyond what you've seen, lies a town like your town, if your town was a dream." Chokes me up a little bit, I'm sorry. We would not be in this position to do what we've done in this budget, Chairman England. We would not be in this position to give taxpayers more of their own money. We would not be in a position to take care of Georgians were it not for the dozens and dozens and dozens of those that came before us with a dream of what this Georgia could be, what this Georgia should look like, and what our economy could become. So thank you to all of them that came before us and made this possible. Mr. Speaker, I'll be happy to answer questions if there are any.
You do not have any questions.
I ask this body for its favorable consideration, and I yield the will.
We do have other members who wish to be heard. Chair recognizes Representative Jasmine Clark to speak to the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Colleagues, today I rise to ask you to vote no on HB 1437. And the reason why I'm asking you to vote no is because I'm asking you to vote no on raising taxes on over 500,000 Georgians. To be clear, HB 1437 is not a tax cut for all. Analysis done by the Georgia Budget and Policy Institute shows that this bill will actually raise taxes on hundreds of thousands of voters. Now, I do recognize that it will decrease taxes on some, but most of the people who will see a decrease in taxes, that decrease will only be about $73 a year or less than $6 a month. This increased burden that we will see on over 500,000 Georgia individuals and families, this increase in taxes can be up to $600 per year. So who will see this increase? Because I think that is important. This increase will be on middle-class voters and families making between $38,000 and $150,000, with the bulk of that being to those making $64,000 to $109,000. So to vote for this is a vote to raise their taxes by hundreds of dollars per year. Right now, our economy is recovering from the pandemic, and because of that, we are seeing record price increases. We're seeing inflation. Not to mention, we're in the midst of a war. Right now is not the time to raise taxes on some Georgians, on any Georgians. This bill is also a spending bill. This bill will cost our state over $1 billion. I find it curious that a bill with $1 billion+ impact does not have a publicly available fiscal note. The members of the committee did not have a fiscal note. In fact, this bill was debated for less than 5 minutes. Over $1 billion and less than 5 minutes to talk about it in full committee. Where will we cut $1 billion from our budget? Because I think that's important. We have a lot of ambitions in this chamber. It's the year of mental health. It's the year of education and all these other things that we claim that we care about. Well, if we cut $1 billion from our budget, we're going to have to cut from education. We are going to have to cut from health care. That includes rural health care, which we clearly care a lot about because we passed several bills about rural health care. We are going to have to cut from mental health. So this bill costs over $1 billion. This bill raises taxes on over 500,000 Georgians. This bill is not good policy at this point in time. I ask you to really consider this, especially if you represent one middle-class voter. Think about the impact on them. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield the well.
Lady has yielded the well. Chair recognizes Representative Wilson to speak to the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Colleagues, I'm all for helping hardworking Georgians who need a break in these tough times right now, very expensive times. But let's talk about who this bill actually helps. This is an incredibly regressive bill. The majority of the cost, about $620 million a year, is going to go exclusively to fund tax cuts for the top 20% of Georgians. Those families making over about $110,000 a year. As my colleague just mentioned, it actually raises taxes on about 10% of Georgians. And those who are earning less than $24,000 a year, they'll get less than half of them will even get a tax cut. We are effectively raising taxes on the working poor. That's what this bill will do. And we're only able to do so thanks to the budget surplus that we have from the American Rescue Plan, which the majority party is happy to claim while bashing our president, even though Georgia Republicans, not a single one of them, supported that measure. So let's keep that in perspective. This bill has been rushed through in an election year because it's going to look good on a mailer, but it's not smart policy for Georgia, and I ask you to oppose it. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield the well.
Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to adopting the committee substitute? The chair hears none. The committee substitute is adopted. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All those in favor of the passage of the bill will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. What purpose does Representative Maynor rise?
Parliamentarian
State
inquiry.
your inquiry.
Is it not true that I wanted to ask one of the speakers about line 106 because it says for each dependent of a taxpayer there's a $3,000 advantage. So I wanted to understand why they felt like that was not positive.
Well, you didn't have that opportunity, so, and I certainly wouldn't pretend to speak for them. What purpose does the Majority Caucus Whip, Representative Wilkerson, rise?
Parliamentary inquiry.
State
Mr.
your
Speaker.
inquiry.
Is it not true that I appreciate the work that the author has done on this bill, and it has a lot of very good points in it? The one concern that I do have is the lack of a fiscal note, and that is the primary reason that I am voting no today.
The gentleman so states. What purpose does Representative Mallow rise?
Parliamentary inquiry, Mr.
State
Speaker.
your inquiry.
Is it not true that the state of Georgia has not returned any money back to the federal government from the American Rescue Plan as a state?
We'll find that out from Chairman England. What purpose does the chair of the Ways and Means Committee rise?
Parliamentary
State your inquiry.
Isn't the fiscal impact roughly $1 billion that will go back in the hands of hardworking Georgians?
That's my understanding. What purpose does Chairman Collins rise?
Parliamentary inquiry.
State your inquiry.
Is it not true that while a lot of other states were shut down, our state kept on working hard through the pandemic?
That is entirely true. And they're still paying for it. All right, one more parliamentary inquiry. What about what purpose does Representative Becky Evans rise?
Parliamentary inquiry.
State your inquiry.
Isn't it true that there are 7,000 Georgians with disabilities waiting for now comp waivers in the state of Georgia?
If the lady so states, I'm sure she's taken a look at that. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machines. On the passage of House Bill 1437, the ayes are 115, the nays are 52. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. All right, this House will be in recess for lunch until 1:30 p.m.